Here we're going to be listening to Darth Lunga. Now, Darth Lunga was able to see the special IMAX preview, so he saw the first 10 minutes of Dune as well as the trailer. So he's coming from a much more well informed place. He also knows Dune, so he's well read. So he knows the mythology, he knows Dune, and he knows now the special preview. And yet, while he's mostly on board, he does have a bit of note of skepticism, which is good. We don't want to just be like a chorus and say, Warner Brothers is more magic, they're beautiful, I love the way they destroyed the Snyderverse. Sorry for the small Warner Brothers protest there. Okay, but we'll hear him speak, and he'll voice some of his concerns as well as his praise for the movie. It's mostly good, but there are some issues.
Vast everything is, which kind of fits with the whole vastness of space and the space guild and all the other good things that go along with Dune. But the cinematography is just spectacular. All the actors, pretty much, except for one, which I'm going to get to, all the actors perfect in their roles. Every line I heard was beautiful. They all fit the role. Everything was great. And I really, really, really enjoyed everything I saw. It really put me into the world of Dune. As far as me being a Dune fan, knowing what was coming, it really put me into it. And I feel someone who's not a Dune fan, it will also give them a good entry into this movie. Timothée Chalamet, perfect as Paul. Josh Brolin, perfect as Gurney Halleck. Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto. There's this one scene where he's doing his little speech. Amazing how he is as Duke Leto. The one negative I was going to say, the movie opens up with kind of a monologue done by Zendaya, who plays Chani, which is one of the Fremen, Stilgar's daughter. Was not blown away by her performance in that opening. She sounds like Zendaya. To me, if an actor sounds like the actor all the time like that, she sounds like an American girl, takes me out of this sci-fi feel. I can't feel it if that's how she sounds. And unfortunately, this is one of the problems I have with Zendaya as an actress, even other things I saw her in. I think she's very one note, and she doesn't really portray or put out the emotion that's required of the roles she's in, and it just seems flat all the time. So that I think is going to be a problem for me when I watch this movie. However, the story, the splendor, all the other actors, all the other beauty, the cinematography of this, I think will not bother me as much. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe once we see some of the acting with her, seeing her speaking lines and her face while she's talking at the same time might help, because the opening was kind of a voiceover. It was her voiceover over scenes that her character is in, kind of giving a little history of what's going on in the world. But it's not her like interacting or talking. So perhaps when I see her interacting and talking specifically, let's say with Paul, maybe that'll change my opinion.
Is Zendaya a bit of a rock in this film? I'm halfway with him. Now, when I saw it, actually I've been getting more and more on board with her playing Shawnee. So I'm actually kind of against him, but I'm kind of with him as well. Now, from my perspective, she's not too distracting, and I think she does this. She looks great in the costume. She sounds fine, and we get little bits and pieces of the narration, so we hear her voice. And again, I got to be honest here, though, that I can't tell if this is her normal voice or her different voice because I've seen her in Spider-Man. I've already forgotten her. I remember Jake Gyllenhaal being in the movie. I remember even Tom Holland in some of their scenes. I wonder, was she even in the movie? And they're like, yeah, she was in the movie. And I'm like, she was? I totally forgot about her. So her as an actress and screen presence, I agree partly it's not very impressive. She's a very pretty girl. She's nice and thin. If you this is your type, then yeah, she's very stunning and all that. But I was like, I really don't care. And is she Mary Jane in those movies? No, I'm not convinced. I will say though, to be consistent, Kirsten Dunst also is not Mary Jane, and I love Kirsten Dunst. You have no idea how much I love her, but she's also not Mary Jane, so I want to be consistent. But definitely her Mary Jane at least feels closer. So the Kirsten version is also not MJ, but Zendaya just doesn't register. But for Shawnee, I'm willing to believe a lot of it, but I will say, and I'm surprised he didn't say this, that his thing is her vocal delivery was very poor. To me, the more and more I think about it, just her physique looks ridiculous. She looks great in the costume, but you got to think to yourself, she's a really tall, thin model. Would she really be able to go toe to toe and do hand to hand fighting? And the answer is clearly not. She just looks strange in that in that way. But it's a fantasy. You can jump with the fantasy. But I think we got to be honest. They clearly just chose her because she looks good with Timothy, and they're just courting a younger audience who probably doesn't care about Dune. It just sexually fantasizes about Zendaya and Timothy, and just want these two young lovers together. And it's like, okay, and romance is in Dune, but yeah, it feels a little jarring if you think it through. Like, would this petite model really make it out there? Now, I want to apologize to her. She is actually very tall, and you see that tallness, but she just comes off as a kind of wallflower. You don't think she really could be that tough. And I didn't even notice the vocal delivery, but apparently her vocal delivery is very monotone and just she sounds like she sounds. She doesn't sound weird or extraordinary given the circumstances or the environment. I actually do believe her mostly in Shiny, but I do agree if we focused a lot just only on her, we'd probably sense like, yeah, you don't really belong in this universe. Why are you here? But I think to be respectful towards her, I think if we did look at the roles, I can imagine one or two other actors in each role that might be able to replace her. But I think for the most part, the casting is very spot on. And just to be completely accurate, Jason Momoa apparently looks nothing like Duncan. He really does not match the book description, but he fell into the role. So it's not just physicality. It does seem like she's just not able to communicate fully. But I'm only halfway with him. I'm really sort of willing to, table my skepticism. It is what it is. She's just a sexy young actress, and we're going to have to buy the fantasy of what Paul is falling in love with, right? It's not just she's playing the role of the Fremen. She also has to be the lover and the love interest, and that I can believe. Now, do other people find her particularly attractive? Probably some people find her like, she looks okay. I'm halfway. I do sense why Denis cast her in terms of her attractiveness, but I'd have to be honest, if they'd finally do the sequel and for whatever reason she can't do it, I'm not going to cry if they find somebody else. So I respect what she's trying to do, but yeah, I think we could imagine a lot of actresses who could probably fulfill her role. But what she's doing with Shawnee is great, and to be totally fair and consistent, they also used kind of like the model physique for the David Lynch version. Like, it's the same thing. That Shawnee doesn't look like she could also do well in a fight either. So they just seem to have a consistent thing with Shawnee. They want quote a Hollywood beauty model and not really be true to the books, and that is what it is. So even if they've done things like artificially, the skin color does, frankly, you can't get out of it, does make more sense for this environment. But does Shawnee really look like this? Yeah, probably not. I think if we go through the books rigorously, like, I'd imagine Shawnee's much stronger and tougher, and she does not give that off. In fact, she's not even trying. She just looks like she looks in ordinary life. So that I found a little jarring. Halfway with them, that the Zendaya factor may be distracting, but elsewhere, the music, the sound, the look, the sheer scope, as he says and can verify, were incredible and awesome. And from what I've gathered from other people who've seen the IMAX, it's the same thing. So if you want to focus on that, it might, yeah, drag down your score. I just see her as a part of the universe, so I'm not overly concerned. But yeah, if it is a concern, it may be a little distracting. So there we are. There may be some, kind of sore spots if you see Dune, but they're not too big. But I'm sure as we go on ahead, people are going to have issues with other actors or other portrayals. But yeah, she kind of does stick out as just the one very weak spot in the whole thing. Because again, she's working with Oscar-winning actors, so she's going to stick out as a little bit, modest in her talent. And there we are. But otherwise, it looks like Dune will be an incredible experience. And there we are. Thanks for listening.